Good morning, Lakeview family. I am currently at my house, obviously. See the background. I'm recording this Wednesday mid-morning, and it snowed again. There's no school. It's quite the experience we've had these last few days, and it's been fun in some ways and annoying in others. But ultimately, it is what it is. So at least we're not in some other parts of the country, like further west where my folks live, in the kind of the Portland metro area. I was on a Zoom call. I have a call every Wednesday with my friend James Austin, who pastors in Camas, Washington, just outside of Vancouver. My friend Marcus LeBaron, who pastors in Arizona. A lot different weather for him. And then my good friend Errol Karam, who a lot of you will know. He and his wife Rhonda have spoken to us. They're in South Africa, different weather even still. But in Western Washington, they have the famous ice storms that they get. So there's like literally almost a half inch of ice on top of snow that they received in the last couple days. So at least we don't have that. Heard there may be some chance of freezing rain. I hope we don't get that. It's gnarly. But it's just kind of fun. It's a different pace. Kind of messes things up, can be frustrating. I don't get to watch Steven play basketball tonight because school is canceled, so basketball is canceled. So that's a bummer. So it interrupts those things, but ultimately we get to take it as what it is. And how do we respond to weather? So choosing joy, and I'll have some joy when I'm out shoveling snow. It's weird, I know, but it's one of my favorite things to do. So I will enjoy doing more of that. I've already done some this morning. Got up early and shoveled. But responding to the things as they come, finding peace and rest and joy in the midst of that is a lot of the kind of conversation we'll be having over the next few weeks and months as we look at what it means to be a disciple. Last year at this time, we started a series called Abide. You heard me talk about this last week in hopes of meeting on Sunday, which we didn't because of the snow. But we'll be doing again another journey through a series similar name called Abide, where we look at connection, transformation, and production, primarily through the lens of John 15 and Jesus' call and commission to be and make disciples and what that looks like. But also there's some content we're going to be working through in a small group series that we're going to start in the middle of February called Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. And you'll hear more about that in the coming weeks, so I won't expound too much. But you can Google it if you want. But there's been a small group that piloted a portion of this toward the end of last year. The staff and some of the members of our NBI discipleship committee to begin to think about what would this look like as a part of helping shape our culture around our mission of being disciples, loving our neighbors, and making disciples. And if we really mean that and begin to take some of those steps into being like Christ, being formed and shaped in the image of Christ for the sake of others and ourselves, what does that look like? And so I'm excited for this journey, and it kind of will be based around this idea of connection, both with God and with community and in community. Discipleship is not a lone soldier process. There's no lone rangers. It's not an on your own Jesus and me kind of affair. Like, it is something that is done in community, and the way in which God uses the story of the whole to shape the individual. And in our kind of individualized context, particularly in the Western world, and even more so in the United States of America, there can be very much a Jesus and me, very individualistic way of doing life, which leads to a lot of isolation, kind of being separate. You marry that with what we are as Nazarenes in a kind of American holiness, Wesleyan holiness context, where we talk a lot about perfection, this idea of sanctification. So you have a very individualistic way of doing things and this idea of then being perfect, being holy, and you put those together, it can be a lonely journey because it really in some ways can create an environment that does not invite transparency and vulnerability. And without those things, confession, honesty about sin and shortcomings and mistakes and failings aren't available. And so then we just perpetuate, in some ways, what we'll talk about as emotional immaturity. Because as humans, we are whole beings. And so being discipled is this whole being process. It's not just about our spiritual life, about doing certain practices that make us like Jesus. It is a transformation of the whole person. So we have connection and we have transformation, which we see a lot of that in Scripture, and not just in the New Testament, but as you look at God's whole story of journeying with humanity, as we looked a huge part of that in the Old Testament, transformation of the person, the whole person, and consequently the community, that it really starts and ends with the larger picture of the people that God is calling out and shaping and forming to be the people that God will bless to then bless the world. And so really putting ourselves back into community as we think about discipleship. So we have connection, transformation, and finally production. And I like that word because it kind of messes with us a little bit. Because what we don't mean and what Jesus does not mean is that you do things, that you produce results, that there's success. And sometimes in the church, that gets out ahead and out in front. And so we're trying to do all these things to impress and to earn. And we know that that's not the reality of the kingdom. So production is really the work that is done by the Spirit in us. We see that clearly in John 15. We talk about abiding in the vine and the work that Jesus does, that God does as the gardener. Jesus is the vine. We're grafted into that. And the work that God does to prune and to trim, the hard work, the heart work. And from that, without that, there's no fruit. And so this idea of production is what God does in and through those of us who are surrendered to the vine and living in the vine and being like Jesus. So those are the things that we're going to talk about and launch on this Sunday. And so I'm excited to talk about that. I'm excited in the next coming weeks to explore more and share more with you about emotionally healthy discipleship. And the courses that will be offered beginning in mid-February, we'll have both a Sunday night opportunity and a Wednesday during the day opportunity for people to journey together as we continue this kind of quest of being disciples, of responding to Jesus' words. Go and make disciples, to be disciples, to follow Jesus. We can get lost in so many other things. But at the end of the day, being a Christian is about being a disciple of Christ, of Jesus. And we're going to try to do that better together. So I look forward to that. Stay safe, enjoy the snow, and we will chat soon. Peace.